be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a scholar of the law, tested him by asking, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law and the prophets depend on these two commandments." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
New York City police officer Stephen McDonald lay on the ground, shot in the head by a 15-year-old boy who then shot him twice more. One of those bullets severed his spinal cord, leaving him paralyzed. And although McDonald's body would never recover, his spirit seemed to sprout new wings. Needing hospitalization for 18 months, on the day of his son Connor's baptism, he made the decision that changed his life forever. McDonald chose to forgive the boy who paralyzed his body, saying, "I often tell people that the only thing worse than a bullet in my spine would have been to nurture revenge in my heart. Such an attitude," he says, "would have extended my tragic injury into my soul, hurting my wife, son, and others even more. It is bad enough that the physical effects are permanent, but at least I can choose to prevent spiritual energy." McDonald went on to speak to youth groups, to high school groups, to assemblies, attempting to develop, especially in young people, the capacity for love and forgiveness. Never considering himself a religious person before the shooting, McDonald now credits his long hospital stay as a time when he reevaluated his life, confirming, quote, "It was God's love that put me back together. It was God's love that put me back together." McDonald went on to reflect, "So God has turned something terrible into something beautiful. Forgiveness is really about our own healing. We may experience slight offenses, or they may be profound, but in the end, it is our choice, and it is the survival of our own souls that is at stake. Thus, for Stephen McDonald, the greatest commandment, loving God with all one's whole heart, was brought into focus through the practice of the second greatest commandment, loving one's neighbor as oneself, or in McDonald's case, forgiving the boy who shot him as he himself would want to be forgiven. Stephen McDonald shows us the most important consideration for living out the faith is a question of the heart. If our hearts are in the right place, loving God and loving our neighbor, well, then we'll know just what to do no matter the issue. In today's gospel, Jesus answers the lawyer who tries to trap him by asking about the greatest commandment. And we need to remember that during that time, Jewish law contained 631 commands. These contained regulations about how to pray in the morning, how to pray in the evening, how to bless food, how to give thanks for the first flower of the season, who to visit, especially the sick, what to say to an unrepentant sinner, a proper prayer for every situation. And these laws were everywhere, surrounding every human activity. Worship, loans, gift giving, parenting, violence, theft, food, sexual matters, Sabbath rest, and so forth. In this atmosphere, what becomes important is the behavior, meticulously and literally following the law, continually consulting a book to guide every action. But note this, it is not only what we do that counts, though it counts. It's not only what we do that counts, but from where we do it. Doing something because it is expected and doing something from the heart are two very different experiences. That's why St. Paul says in Galatians and elsewhere in his writings that those who truly live in the love of God have no need of the law. Not because what the law covers is not important, but because if you are truly steeped into the love of God, you automatically live according to the law, plus more. Jesus is concerned about the inner state of the person. Mindless compliance with the dictates of multiple laws makes one an outer person, or we could say more of a superficial person, conforming but not understanding. But when the love of God and the love of neighbor center you and inform your consciousness, you know that the new law means not to take advantage of anyone's vulnerability or weakness. If you look at some of our crime dramas on TV or some people's actual experiences, you see that the goal is to win by picking apart the law, not respecting other people's vulnerability and weaknesses. So it's a court of law. And the law at times can be used to the jeopardy of the vulnerable, especially the poor. In touch with the inner union of human and divine love, you always know the ultimate purpose of laws, to live in love. In fact, love is the law of Christ. Jesus summarizes all the laws in these two commands. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. He places both love of God and neighbor on equal footing. And he goes on to say, the whole law and the prophets depend on these. So if our hearts are in the right place, loving God and loving our neighbors, we'll know just what to do no matter the issue. Again, if our hearts are in the right place, loving God and our neighbors, we'll know just what to do, no matter the issue. Which brings up the question, is your heart in the right place? Is your heart in the right place?